Okay, so we've got angle A of 35. We had little b of 8, so that's over here. And we have little a over here. So we have our A, so we did sine of 35 over 6, and then we had to go with sine B. So we had sine B over 8. We crossed that, and we got 8 times sine of 35 equals 6 times your sine B. We divide the 6 out. Do y'all have the... And we take that inverse, and we got 50. We rounded up to 50. Okay. All right, so then we talk about how on the unit circle that if we're working with sine, sine is your y value, and your y value is the same when we're working with sine. It's reflected over into quadrant 2, right? Because if you had a value of 1/2 for y in the first quadrant, it would also be a positive 1/2 in the second quadrant, right? So when we are working with these, we have to find those two values. And you kind of did that on your warm-up, right? On your that first one, you found where sine was negative 1/2, I think, wasn't it? And it was in these two quadrants because those match up. So in this case, we have to find the supplement because when we go from quadrant 1 to quadrant 2, that is a total of 180. So if we do that, we find the supplement of 50. We got 130, right? Okay, now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to check the possibility of having one triangle, two triangles, or none. So we're going to come back over here and we're going to set them up with the information that we already know. So I'm going to have triangle 1, so I'm going to have angle A1, angle B1, and angle C1. So this is triangle 1. And then over here I'm going to have triangle 2. So we'll do A2, B2, and C2. Okay. Now, they gave us that 35 degrees, right? So that stays as is. We cannot change what they gave us, so we'll put that in as is. Now, our sine B we found to be 50, okay? So that's going to be put into our first triangle. So I'm going to transfer that over to my first triangle. The supplement, that's going to be put into the second triangle. And that was 130. Now, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go back and figure out if or what our angle C is. What is this angle right here? What's this angle right here? So if I have 35 and I have 50, what would C have to be? 95. Yeah, 95. Okay? Now let's come over here to your second one. So what does that tell you? That tells you you have a good triangle. That thing's going to work, right? We're fitting that 180. We're staying within that parameter. All right, what about over here? We have 35 and 130. What would C have to be?
15.
Okay. So you have two triangles. You have two triangles. You have this first triangle here where you have three angles that come together given our information. And then over here when we find the supplement, that supplement also works. So that's the case of two triangles. That's the case where we popped that side A in going this direction, and then we popped him back in going this direction. Okay? So now what we have to do is we have to go back and we have to fill in the rest of the information. So for our first one, so what didn't change was little b and little a, right? So little a and little b stay the same for both of them. We'll add those in. I didn't leave much room. So little a was 6 and little b was 8. So those don't change. Oops, that was 8. No. Okay, little a and little b. I'll put them over here for both of them. So now what we've got to do is we've got to go back and we have to find little c. So let's do our first one, C1. So we're still going to use our sign of 35 over 6. Equals sign of what? For little c? 95. So sign of 95 over little c. And we'll do C1 because that's our first triangle. So find what that is. Find what that is. So little C1 was 10.4, what would you say, 42? Yeah. So 10.4, okay. Now let's do little C2. So we still go with our sign 35 over 6. Equal this time, it will be sign of what? What's your C? 15 in our second one. 15 over little c. We'll do little c2. So we'll cross them up like that. So we'll come on over here. What? 2.7? Yes. 2.7. Okay, so that gives you the information for both of your little triangles on this one. All right, so 45 for our angle A. We have little b is 5 and little a is 3. Okay. So taking our a's, we'll set this one up. So we would have sine of 45 over 3 equals, and since we've been given little b again, we will find sine b. So sine b over our 5. So figure that out. Okay, so when we end up with that 1.18, and I know some of you went straight into it so you didn't see it, so that's kind of why I'm putting this up here right now. And you ended up with an error, right, when you tried to put that in? Why is that an error? Why does it not work when you try to take the inverse sine of 1.18? It is out of the domain, right? Because your domain for your inverse has to fall between what? That's on your 1 page. It has to fall in between the -1 and the 1. So what does 1.18 fall in your restricted domain? No. Okay? So that's why your calculator gives you the error. So what does this tell you about this triangle? It what? If you can't find an angle, over here that's going to work, it's where? It's not there, right? If you can't find this angle, what are you going to assume? It's not there. And why is it not there? Because what's happening to this side right here? It didn't make it, right? It's that case where your side just didn't quite make it. He got about this far, right? But didn't make it down to here. Therefore, you have a big error, right? So your conclusion is you have what? No triangle. You have no triangle, okay? So that's your scenario 2. All right, so let's go ahead and set this one up using our a's. So we would have sine of 50 over the 8 equal, we'll find sine of b again, sine of b over our 7. Okay, so let's find that. So I'll let you do that. All right, so we're just going to round this. You get that inverse to be 42 degrees, right? Okay, so now what do we need to do? We actually found an angle, so now we have to find its what? Supplement, right? So let's find that supplement. So 180 minus 42, that would give us a what?
138.
Okay, so let's label this. So we're going to label this B1 for the first triangle, and we're going to label this B2 for our second triangle. Now let's come over here and set those two triangles up. So I'm going to have an A1, B1, C1. I'll leave a little more room this time. And then we'll have our second one, A2, B2, C2. Okay. Again, A they gave us as 50, so that will hold. So we will put that in for both. Our B1, that was the what we found when we did the law of sines, and that was 42. So we'll put that in here for B1. And the supplement will go in for B2, and that was 138. So let's put that in. Okay, now let's figure out what we have. 50 plus 42. And then, so what would C1 give us? 88. All right, so that one works. Okay, let's come over here. 50 plus 138.
188.
What is it?
180.
That is 188. Right? If we add those two together, we get 188. So what does that tell you about your angle here? Doesn't exist, right? So that's out. So what does that tell you about this second triangle? Doesn't exist, right? So no triangle. It doesn't exist. Okay? So that one's out. So then you're going to go back and you're just going to find your little C2. So let's do that real quick. So we'll still use the sine 50 over the 8, and then that would give us a sine of what? What are we going to use to find little c? Sine of what? 8, yes, 88 over our little c. And we'll do C1. So figure that out. Yeah, so you should be getting 10, you said 10.44?
Yeah.
10 point, okay, and there is your little c. So we could come back over here and we could add those in, little a, little b, little c, and we'll have a complete triangle. So a was 8, little a was 8, little b was 7, and little c was the 10.44. Okay? So that's your 3 cases. You can have 2 triangles, 1 triangle, or none, okay, depending on the information, the given information. When you are able to get your second angle, you always find its supplement, right? Because we're working in that quadrant 1 and quadrant 2.